Hey everybody, this is the October Albums of the Month video. October's had so much stuff because I even had to do a catch-up video talking about a bunch of records like Yellow Card and Thrice. And I still did a lot of separate videos, and I've got a bunch to talk about here, so what an insane amount of stuff in October. November's also hectic, there is a lot of stuff to talk about, but by December it's very calm. There is probably like 2 albums max I could even found for December, because it's tend to be a quiet period, and no one really wants to release an album in December because Christmas would overshadow it, so that tends to be the case with it. But then we also have the stuff I want to talk about, because I didn't do it last year talking about albums I missed. I only missed 2 albums I even talked about on my top 50 albums of the year, just because I listened to them and got the chance to rank them, but I didn't actually get to review them. But I will be posting one at the end of the year, or at least obviously before I get to the top 50, because I tend to do the top 50 best albums and top 50 worst albums, and I might even get around to doing what we're seeing in 2025, because there's been a bunch of stuff announced and I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to get from that. But yeah, before we get to that point, let's go through October. Still got material. November's still going to be a hectic one, so let's dive straight in and start off with They Are Gutting a Body of Water. This is LOTTO's. Better yet, LOTTO is the album name. I don't know why I said it like that, but yeah, standard shoegaze. I think it doesn't really do anything that feels absolutely stand out, but I like the concept. Instrumentation's quite nice, and the vocalist also sounds pretty good as well. I feel like it's got good components to making a standardly good record, but I don't think it's anything that absolutely is mind-blowing. It's just a kind of nice sound, one that you can just put on and just kind of vibe with. Is a good one. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. We got Agriculture, The Spiritual Sound. Oh my god, this album is absolutely insane. One of the best black gaze albums of the year. I mean, you get an absolute shock with this one. Most black gaze just kind of falls with the kind of melodic guitars that have this very spacey feel to it, like shoegaze, with the black metal essence of the absolute high fry screaming on that. But then you get this band, it very experiments from the feel of that. You start with a track like My Garden, which just absolutely is insanely heavy. It feels more black metal than black gaze, just with how rough it goes, and you get a bunch of other moments like this on the first half, but the second half is split so weirdly. Almost every song isn't really heavy at all. Dan's Love Song is more of a kind of a tamer song. Hallelujah as well kind of feels a bit more of an acoustic song, and The Reply just kind of feels like a more standard shoegaze experience with a little bit of a heavy in it, but it's very tame. But then you have Bodhidharma, which is the biggest song on the album, I believe, and this one's weird because it feels like they're just trying to like set up the drum. They just kind of starting the song off with just a little bit of a practice run, it feels like, but that's the intention, and then it just dives in after this little bit just into the black metal, black gaze feel, and it's the only really heavy song on the second half. I love the way that they constructed it. It's a very cool concept, and I think The Spiritual Sound is honestly one of the best albums of the year. Don't think it's the best black gaze album, because I think a lot of people know what the best black gaze album of the year is, as it might be my favourite album of the year, but yeah, this one is incredible. 4 out of 5. We got Lemonheads, I love Chant. Honestly, I wasn't really feeling Lemonheads' new album. It just sounds a bit weird and just a bit off from what I'm used to from the band. I get what they're going for, but I just don't think there's really anything inventive or anything extraordinary. It just kind of feels a bit of a muddled mess of concept. At least some of the songs do sound nice, but I just find there's moments that just really ruin quite a few songs for me, so I'm going to have to give it a 2 out of 5, unfortunately. We got Biohazard, Divided We Fall. Biohazard has had some good stuff in the past, and I think modern Biohazard isn't anything bad. I don't think it's anything insanely good. I think it's just kind of a standard experience. I kind of enjoy what I heard, but I don't think I necessarily dive to go straight back into it. But that being said, I did like the first half of the record, and I do think it's old enough to give it a 3 out of 5. I'm not really strongly on this record, but yeah, it's still pretty good. I guess good. Don't know why I said pretty good. I am really fumbling this up today. We got Action Adventure, Ever After, an easy core pop punk band, or as they call themselves, a pop punk band with breakdowns, and I guess that's probably the best definition. But there's other pop punk bands that do that, and they're called like easy core or post-hardcore, so it's not necessarily anything original, but they definitely lean into that more pop-punky sound, and I quite like it. Honestly, Action Adventure has a lot of fun stuff to it, but there are a few songs, in my honest opinion, that do suffer a little bit from some of the silly ideas they kind of implement to it. For example, they have one of the singles called Big Al Dente, and this one is cool. I like this one, the structure and the kind of chorus, the hooks. It just is all pretty catchy. Then it ends with Breakdown, which I think, yeah, not fine, not bad at all. I think the breakdown sounds good, but they make the song fade out, and it's literally in the middle of the album, and I don't understand the bands that want to do like a fade out in between an album. It feels like they could have just ended on a breakdown and they go straight into Spiral, but instead they have this long fade out after the breakdown really starts to hit in gear, and it just sounds weird. And then Daydream does this as well with another breakdown. I don't understand what they're doing here, but minus like little silly things like fade outs, I feel like this album has a lot of fun energy to it. It's certainly not one of the best easycore albums ever, but I definitely think as a newer band it's got some kind of new band charm to it. I mean, tracks like That Time I Got Reincarnated as Slime AMV is definitely one of my more favorited tracks, and I even enjoy kind of the Day Terror Disaster Piece openings, and then you also get some features as well which do make some of the songs quite fun. Although I'm not necessarily a big fan of No Offence's voice, I'm not really a fan of No Offence's music, so I do find kind of this feature to be underwhelming, but Dan Lambton and Ben Jorgensen have been quite entertaining, and I do think they do add some really cool value to it. And not even with the No Offense feature, I feel like the song itself actually is pretty good. I just don't think the features anything to write home about. But yeah, I'll give this one a 3.5 out of 5. I think it's quite good. We got the new one by Julien-K. This is Dark Show. Julien-K, very underground industrial rock artist, but they've gone entirely into this electronic rock feel instead of having a little bit more of the kind of hard rock. Bit more of the kind of, or just imagine like Sonic the Hedgehog, or Shadow the Hedgehog rather, music with a more electronic. That's pretty much Julien-K, as they did do some music for that, which is quite cool. It's actually a pretty decent album, but because it relies too much onto the industrial electronic rock more than usual, it kind of feels a bit more formulaic, and it doesn't quite have as much distinction. A lot of the songs repeat the chorus, or a lot of stuff just kind of has similar grooves to it, and I think Julien-K definitely has got an amazing sound, and even with that it's still interesting. Kind of reminds me of a Tamer Combi Christ, which is quite cool, but not really necessarily got too much into it. I think as a Julien-K album it's still enjoyable enough to give it a 3.5 out of 5, but I don't think it quite hits the mark as some of their other stuff, but still a good album for sure. Got 1st of October, 1 week. Gonna have to lower the score because the album art is pretty bland and kind of boring to look at, but I'm joking about that. But yeah, the songs itself is actually interesting. 1st of October I've never really listened to, but I think it's a kind of collab band with Rob Scallion, the YouTuber, a YouTuber who does like music posting, and I think it's Andrew Yang. Sorry if I butchered that because I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but yeah, they've both come together to make 1st of October. Never listened to them until now, and I think it's interesting how much variety they have. Some songs have a little bit more of a kind of softer, bouncy feel to it, and then other songs just kind of have this more kind of punk energy to it. Some songs feel a bit emo, and etc. They feel like they kind of dabble with different ideas and just spitball it, and the second half of the album is where I think it picks up with Liberation. Oh my god, it gets so hectic from that point, but there's so much like crazy ideas they play with in this record, and I think as of what it's worth, while I'm not hooked entirely on some of the songs on the first half, it's a 3 out of 5. I definitely think it's an enjoyable experience. And also, why is it called 1st of October? If I think almost every release hasn't been on the 1st of October. They got the month right, but instead they got the wrong date. But yeah, we got REMINA, the Silver Sea. This is cosmic doom metal, and I think the concept sounds great, but I think the execution needed a bit more. I feel like it just kind of doesn't really go anywhere that interesting with the concept, and I think the features as well were a bit underwhelming and kind of bring it down a bit. But the whole idea of this would have been incredible to see. I just don't really vibe with this as much, despite how cool the idea of cosmic doom is. It is just not really created in such a strong way that I feel have too much of a strong opinion on it. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. I think it's alright, but it doesn't really feel like an album I'd return to be honest. We got Solence, Angels Calling. Yep, Solence are back with their 4th album, and I'm going to be honest, I think it's the weakest one they've done. And the idea of Solence, I understand they're going for this electronical sound. They've always been kind of this hard rock band that plays with a lot of electronics, but I've never realised until they've joined, I guess this is the 2nd record label they've joined now, that they just feel very formulaic and just do the same idea. You get kind of the electronic feel to it, you kind of get the goofy lyrics that, or not goofy, more corny is the better word to describe it. And while they can definitely have some good hooks here and there, I feel like the writing is just not really that great. And when it gets to the bridge, it's always the same, uncleans, electronical breakdown with the different electronics into the guitars, and some of it feels a bit clunky, and just feels like they're just throwing it in randomly. Other times it just feels like this one doesn't have it, let's put it into the song, and it loses the originality and personality each song has. I feel like a lot of songs are harder to differentiate on the record because they do similar ideas, and just it kind of feels like they're trying to do the basic sound again and again and just wrote the same song 9 times on this record. I personally just don't really find it that great, to be honest. I've really enjoyed Solence as kind of this guilty pleasure band when they were releasing Brothers in 2019. I thought it had so much variety, and while it wasn't a perfect album, I liked the rawness of it. And then you had the Direction EP, which was quite cool. I liked the songs on it, and I think the best release probably was the Deafening album. That one definitely had so many good songs. Everything was great. I liked the variety, and even they had a deluxe edition with some cool ideas to it. And then we also had Hope as a Cult, which, yeah, that one was fine. I wasn't big on it, but at least that felt more distinctive between the songs. This new album is just kind of a letdown in my opinion, so I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. Avatar has the new Don't Go Into the Forest record, and this is them doing more folk metal, and I understand that this might be some people's preference, but I gotta be completely honest. When I've been seeing people say that they prefer this to the last couple of albums, this is better than Dance Devil Dance. I'm going to be honest, Dance Devil Dance just kicked ass in my opinion. I know I wasn't big on it the first time I was going to review it, and then my opinion changed massively and I loved it. But something about this album just feels very meh. I like the first half is mainly the singles, and the singles were pretty much hit or miss in my opinion. Some decent, some not so decent. And I just wasn't really truly invested in any of the songs. I thought they were all fine, but not top tier Avatar, and even in my opinion beats most of the previous album. But I guess they kind of ditched the melodic death element to focus more on this folk metal, heavy metal sound, and the second half onwards it just feels like they were kind of running out of ideas and steam, and at this point I'm just not really a fan of it, to be honest. I think Avatar at least created a fine album. I'd say that it's got the quality there, it's got the ideas, but it's just not really doing much for me, so I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. We got the new one by Bloom, The Light We Chase. Bloom's debut, Maybe Another Life, is just so good. It's such an amazing record, and then I'm wondering what happened with this one. This one generally was interesting because I loved Withered. The single was so good, and I was actually thinking, oh shit, they're going to top their album, but I feel like they kind of rushed to release a second album instead of giving it a bit more thought and steam to it. The songs just kind of feel like it loses what made the melodic hardcore metalcore sound of the first record really work here, so it kind of dabbles more into stuff a little bit like Polaris in some case, which isn't bad, but it just doesn't really feel as much distinction, or at least it doesn't feel like there is as much kind of originality or into this, and it feels more like it's inspired by what other acts are doing. Some of the songs like Tongue Tied I just didn't really think were that great, unfortunately, despite the fact that Bloom has had pretty much a consistent streak on the previous records. So yeah, this is definitely, in my opinion, a drop in quality. I think the guitars just don't really go as hard. I think the hooks and vocals just are fine. They're just not really doing anything that pulls the emotional weight of the record. The writing just feels a bit weaker as well. I think Bloom just kind of wanted to rush to get the second album out, and it's unfortunate because they've had so much potential, and the previous album is just absolutely insane. Like the album, this one starts off great, but it starts to kind of fall into the same category of, oh, this is just the same song, repeat and repeat, and it doesn't even feel like it highlights the insane amount of stuff from the opening of their first album. But it's whatever. I still think it's a good enough album to give it a 3 out of 5, but I'm not really that invested on it either. We got the new one by Creeper, Sanguivore 2. Hell yeah. Well, actually, this is Sanguivore 2, Mistress of Death, not Hell yeah. But yeah, Creeper, honestly, I think they keep it to the same decent sound as their first album. If anything, I kind of prefer this to Sanguivore 1. Sanguivore 1 definitely has, my opinion, probably higher highs, like Cry to Heaven, and then you had the song that's like a 10-minute Meatloaf track on there. But this one just kind of feels like they blend a little bit more of the Meatloaf sound in general within kind of this gothic rock feel, and I like it. The energy is actually quite fun. I like the singles, like Blood Ritual, or Magic Ritual. Oh god, I'm fumbling this. I'll just write on the screen because, yeah, I'm a bit lazy. But yeah, Creeper's new album actually just kicks ass, in my opinion. It's definitely a lot better than what I was thinking it would be, and I feel like it's kind of Creeper's a band you just need to not take seriously. Turn your brain off a little bit and you'll enjoy it. I know you could probably say that about a lot of other bands like Solence, but I feel like Creeper actually do have this kind of charm that I just think some people do take a bit seriously. So yeah, the Creeper's new album, definitely a good one, 3.5 out of 5. Florence and the Machine, Everybody Scream. Yeah, I didn't put this on the thumbnail or anything, so you might be a bit surprised just to see this here, because I know for a fact I'm going to get torched for my opinion, but it's mainly also the fact that I personally don't really review Florence and the Machine. I've listened to Florence for quite a bit. I did grow up a bit listening to Florence and the Machine, and I wanted to see what a new album would be like, because I listened to Dance Fever and thought it was okay, but Everybody Scream, this one wasn't that great in my opinion. I feel like it just kind of, it has like a really cool aesthetic. I like the Halloween idea. There's so many cool aspects. The title track is probably one of the highlights, and I remember seeing this song, I think it was debuted live on the Graham Norton show, and I wasn't really sold on it. I just found it was kind of more in your face, rather than the kind of like creative aspect writing of previous stuff. But it's fine. I think the song itself sounds alright, but I don't know, I just find with this kind of baroque pop direct feel they have here, like it pays off. Some of the last few songs are definitely some of the best stuff, but there's just a whole slab in the middle of just kind of me I don't think needs to be there, and it's just not really one I can really see myself wanting to listen to. It's got a cool idea for being a Halloween album. I'm sure it's probably going to be like the Halloween album of the ages, but it doesn't really tie into kind of really selling on that. It just feels like they use it as a bit of a gimmick, just to kind of give this a little bit of a I guess a separate identity. but I wish they leaned so much more into Halloween. Do you know how cool it would be if you actually had a song that felt like it was more witchy rather than the witch song we had on here? It's kind of underwhelming, to be honest, but I don't know, I just felt like if they just leaned a bit more into Florence and Machine meets kind of this kind of creepy, cool atmosphere, that would be sick, but it's not that, and it's not even close, so I find that kind of a little bit very underwhelming, so I'm going to have to give it a 2 in my opinion. Smash Into Pieces, ArmaHeaven, I wanted to do a separate video on this one, like I did with Avatar, Bloom, Creeper, Solence. Yeah, it's been a busy time, so I haven't been able to do separate videos, especially when November's got a lot of stuff next week, so yeah, apologies, having to slump them on here. Yeah, Smash Into Pieces' new album I'm not really digging either. I think the problem I have with this is I do like the concept of them talking about how AI is going to control the world, because I always like these kind of dystopian settings where something bad's happening, you gotta live in a world that's so controlled, so it's scary, and I like that, but the songwriting kind of lacks in my opinion. And the other thing I don't like is why, the hell is this album like 4 new songs, and there's like 15 tracks, like 10 of them have already been out, and I'm gonna be honest, when they released a bunch of these songs I listened to like half of them and I just didn't really care for it, but hearing it in the context of the album does not really improve it. I'm just gonna be honest, it just feels like some of the weakest writing. Like, I thought Ghost Code wasn't too bad, it wasn't anything crazy, but it was alright. But what happened? Like, Ghost Code was definitely a lot better than this. Vanguard I quite enjoyed, and even Arcadia, not the Sleep Token album, I just meant to say also Arcadia, that's probably what I meant to say, was stronger than this. This just kind of feels like it's doing the bare minimum, and I just don't really think it has anything that reels it in. It just feels like a bland experience of a Smash Into Pieces album, and I'm wondering how it's gone this low, because I personally feel like they haven't had a bad album, but this is probably the first time I'd say it. I just don't really care for this one, unfortunately. 2 out of 5. And finally, the Charlatans, We Are Love. It's cool they have a little bit of psychedelic sound to this, and I've not really been an avid listener of the Charlatans. I just know them, they're just kind of a household name if you're more into the noughties kind of mainstream rock you heard, then the Charlatans probably be on that. With that being said though, I think there is some cool ideas they have blended with the psychedelic rock feel, but not really anything that speaks, that kind of jumps out at me either. I just think it's got a cool aesthetic. Nothing is actually a terrible song on here, I just don't think there is anything that strong that I really consider listening much often. But yeah, Charlatan's new album is fine, I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5. And that is every album I have for the October review. There was even more, but they've been, moved to the albums I missed video, and I'll have to get to that because, I forgot to say, there's still quite a lot on that, and there's still a lot in November. And I can tell you right now, I've surpassed 250 albums reviewing, and it could possibly go to 300. There probably might be 300 albums I've reviewed for that, but I might just make that a counter. Maybe that's a capped point for this year, 300, because I'm already just losing the steam listening to this. Just listening to so much and just getting so muddled with other stuff. It's hard to think of an album at a time, and it's hard to describe how I feel when I've listened to a lot of experiences similar to it. So I do apologise if some of the reviews aren't as detailed as usual, but yeah, that's pretty much it. And I did want to get Halloween, so a review out for Halloween, but my Halloween was at Costco, so I was a bit busy. So there we go. I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and let's see if November's got some good stuff, because I'm definitely excited to see what we have there. All I know is there will probably be like a bunch of separate videos, because I'm going to review Casket separately, Finger 11 separately, and possibly Drain and Bearings as well. We'll have to see. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and see you next video.